Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, The Tutor named Fran. I'm Fran and this video is about... Make sure at the end of the video to like, comment, and subscribe. So let's get started. So there are many different ways to solve for quadratics. Completing the square is one of them. Now, the main rule for completing the square is that you must have a 1 as the leading coefficient. Right now, we have a 4. So we need to factor that out. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to factor 4 out of this two terms here. So we have 4 times x squared plus 6x equals -2. Okay, so that worked out nicely. It gave us an integer for that term there. If you want to see a video where you actually get a fraction in this term, you can watch my other video for completing the square with fraction. That'll give you some extra practice on those type of problems. But for this one, we have nice numbers. So the next step is to identify our b term. And if you're not familiar with this method, you can watch my video on completing the square. But basically, the b term comes from the standard form of a quadratic formula. So that's your ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So bx represents the linear term, and b is the coefficient of the linear term. So in our case, that is equal to 6. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take half of b. So half of 6, we know that that's 3. And then the very last thing that we're going to do is we're going to square the 1/2 b. So that's 3 to the second power, which gives us +9. So now what we do is that this last number that we got here when we squared, this is what we're going to add to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to have 4 times x squared plus 6x plus 9, parentheses closed, equals -2 plus, you might be tempted to just put 9 here, but the thing is, you're not only adding 9 to this side of the equation, you're actually adding 4 times 9. So if you're adding 4 times 9, you're actually adding 36 to the left hand of the equation. So you need to make sure that you actually put 4 times 9 on the right side of the equation as well, so that you can have that balance there. Okay, now we want to factor this, so you might be able to really easily factor that on your own, or we know that we're going to end up with something that looks like x plus or minus something, and then to the second power, and this something that goes here is always whatever this number is. So in this case, we have +3, so this is going to be +3, and that's equal to -2 plus 36. And if we just simplify it a little bit more, we have 4 times x plus 3 to the second power equals 34. Now to solve for x, we want to divide both sides by 4. So we have x plus 3 to the second power equals 34 over 4. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to have x plus 3 equals, don't forget the plus or minus, the square root of 34 over 4. And remember your radical rule, you can break apart this quotient. So you actually have x plus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 34 over the square root of 4, which is going to simplify to x plus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 34 all over 2. And for our last step here, we can just subtract 3 on both sides, and we can get our answer for x. So we have x equals -3 plus or minus the square root of 34 over 2. Now, if the square root of 34, if we could simplify that, then we would, but it's just 17 times 2, so there's nothing that we can really do with that there. So that's our final answer. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up, and remember, like, comment, and subscribe.